for the whole process, and just watch this simple little website just grow into the hub for where people can go. Everybody, this is another episode of Talking Tiny with your host Chicago Bob, and this week we have Maggie Daniels with us from tryittiny.com. Super fired up about this one. We have been waiting at least a month to try to get a call with Maggie. She's been super busy. She's here to tell you all about that, but just to give you background, she has started a revolutionary website called tryittiny.com where it connects landowners with tiny house owners. But what most people don't realize is that she has a lot of land that people need to put tiny houses on. So she has 80% all land just waiting for a tiny house. So if you're looking for a place to park your tiny house, you are not going to want to miss out on this episode. So without further ado, I just want to say thanks for being here, Maggie, and I really appreciate your time you set aside this morning for us. And let's get into it. So, for all those that don't know about your website, what is it that makes it so special, and why the hell did you decide to start it?
Yeah, two big questions, and first and foremost, thanks for having me today. So Try It Tiny, said simply, is really at its core an Airbnb kind of platform for tiny houses, but more importantly for private land rentals. So if you're interested in going tiny and you want to experience that first before you buy it, you can rent a tiny house. And similarly, if you are going tiny and you don't know where to park it, whether that's for a weekend, a month, a year, you can search our private land rentals with our great hosts and rent that land for however long you want.
Okay, so this is something that's been needed for a very long time in the tiny house movement. Was it just a weekend idea, or how did you decide to do this?
Yeah, I wish I had a better story, but my idea really came from, I was renting my foundation house out in the middle of nowhere, Indiana, where I live, or where I spend at least most of my time. And to my surprise, that was a really successful listing. So my house was being rented out much more frequently than I was planning. And I have seasonal livestock on my property. And it became cumbersome for me to be traveling back and forth. So my solution was to get a tiny house and put it on my property. And that way, when my primary house on a foundation was rented, I had somewhere to go that wasn't leaving. And through that process, I got to talk to a lot of great builders, and a lot of the questions I was getting, to my surprise, was, where are you going to put this tiny house, prior to them wanting to commit to building me anything. And so I did some research and worked with the folks at the American Tiny House Association and learned about the problem of people trying to find places to park. So after helping a handful of folks in my own community here in Indiana, I decided to take that platform online, and so we just launched at the end of March.
So, so now you've launched the you launched the website at the end of March. It was funny because I was contacted by you guys back in, I think, December, and so basically I've seen this model come across hundreds of times. I mean, other people have tried things, and I'm kind of like, okay, well, sure, here's some pictures or whatever. What I liked about your website was mostly because you're in the driver's seat, and we've talked several times since then, and it's just always coming up with an innovative way to do something, and I've seen this thing explode. I mean, you guys are now in the Midwest. I mean, you cover 37 states. I mean, that's pretty huge. From launching in March to now we're at the mid-June mark. I mean, that's pretty much the whole country. I mean, that's a lot. So right now, I guess my question is, what's the next play? Where are we going from here?
Yeah, well, and thank you. It has been a jam-packed 11 weeks, who's counting, since we launched. But 37 states is great. However, we need to really densify in those states. So I'm no longer satisfied with having a couple of listings in any given state. Folks need to be close to where their jobs are, where their family is, and we can't be expecting people to have long commutes, and unfortunately what is in some instances still a decent wait time until we can find those properties. So what we're doing right now is actually getting a small team together. A team of one can only take things so far, and getting some much more sophisticated technology around how we're going to be able to source inventory more quickly, almost on an on-demand basis for folks across the country, wherever they are, so that we can solve that problem quickly and give them an option that's at a reasonable price point.
Do you guys have a mobile app?
We are web application friendly, so the website is application friendly. The mobile app for iOS or Android systems is coming down the pike. It is not ready yet, but we will be keeping folks posted on that.
I think that's going to be a huge tipping point, in my perspective. Just like Airbnb, you're on your phone, boom, boom, boom. But the big connection here is, I mean, 80% of the people that call us on a daily basis for tiny homes or want to purchase one from us, the number one question is, where can I place it? I mean, seriously, that's it. And so I think that there's incredible value here, and I'm just really excited for the whole process, and just watch this simple little website just grow into the hub for where people can go. So can you walk us through the website? Just kind of how easy is it to get started?
Sure. And one thing I'll mention is that we did try to keep it simple and clean. So hopefully users will have that experience, and we're always open to feedback. So if you are currently a user and you've submitted feedback, this firsthand, because I take it very seriously. And so we often implement things real time for folks. So when you first go to the site, you can see in the upper right-hand corner, there will be a place where you can sign up or you can log in if you already have signed up. So if you're going and you are owning a tiny house, or you will be in the future, and you're looking for land, the first step is to log in. And then from there, you'll see the menu bar in the top third of the screen. That's going to show you a number of different options that often defaults to land, but there's a drop-down menu on the far left there where you can also filter for tiny houses. And you can search by state. So typically, I suggest that folks search with minimal filters initially, and then you can always dive into the results thereafter. So for example's sake, if you were searching for Washington State and you typed in WA into that search bar, you can then see the list populate in thumbnail style, and then you can always filter into the map view, which is how I think it's sometimes more easy to find out exactly where you're hoping to be, particularly if it's just outside of the MSA or the city that you're targeting. And then from there, you can decide to review the listings in detail. If you have questions about a listing once you've found one, we have a public Q&A forum on each listing. And the reason that we do that is so that oftentimes your questions are going to be had by multiple users, and this way our hosts can answer a question about the specific type of electric hookup in that Q&A forum, and they only have to answer it once, and it benefits everyone. From there, if you decided, you think this might be a good fit, you want to give it a try for, some period of time, or you're prepared to book for longer, you can go ahead and book on that same listing screen. And that's when we'll open up some private Q&A messaging between you and the host, So you can confirm specific details. Our automated system is going to send you the specific address, all of that stuff once you've committed to a booking. And we do have a flexible cancellation policy where you're not going to be penalized if you get behind schedule because of a towing issue or something like that. We appreciate that things like that happen, particularly when you're moving tiny houses. So generally speaking, though, after you've made that booking inquiry, you guys have free communication that occurs from there. And then we hope to see your reviews and your feedback after your stay, whether that's, again, for the short or long term.
All right, so I think that's awesome. So do we pay you or do we pay the landlord? How does the transaction happen?
Sure. So when you were, if you were viewing a listing and you decided that you were going to go ahead and book it, you will be prompted to go ahead and enter your payment information, and we do that for our host protection as well. So both you and the host, both the guest and the host, have to have their payment information set up on the site to be able to go ahead and confirm the booking. And that helps ensure with our third-party payment processor that you are who you say you are and the host is who they say they are. And it can be a safe and secure transaction that happens without the need of having to go exchange cash on hand or something like that, or the risk of a check bouncing or something like that. So that's all handled on site. And we are fully transparent with how those transactions work. So there is a 9.5% service fee that's applied to the total amount of the transaction. So if it was $100, it's $9.50. And that fee is applied at the time of payment. And that's for short-term stays. Now, if you're staying for a long term, you'll see that fee step down. And you can find the details behind that in our FAQ section on the website. But we try and keep it a very low fee for everyone involved. And that little piece just helps to keep maintaining our site.
Well, that's awesome. So let me take it one step further, because I know that this is going to be a question for a lot of landowners out there. Let's say I'm a landlord and I go on the site. I set up my profile and I put up my plots of land. Now I start getting renters. Can I go in on my back end and get a statement or a prospectus of what happened that month and stuff like that?
Absolutely. So what we do is we call it a dashboard. It has all the information that relates to you, whether it's your listings or your trips, your messages, your profile. And in that section, you can also find summaries for your revenue reports, so that you can submit those properly for tax purposes, or just to keep track of how you've been doing as a host. It's often helpful to see the seasonalities and how things have been trending in your area. So you can see those revenue reports in your dashboard.
That's awesome. So that's already up and that's in place already. That's in place already. Well, that's cool.
And that was, I must say, that was actually a great piece of feedback that we got from one of our hosts who was one of the first to get bookings several weeks ago. And it wasn't in a centralized location. So I have to give credit to one of our existing hosts in Florida for that.
That's awesome. So, well, this is incredibly awesome. I appreciate all this information, and I hope that everyone goes to the website, checks it out, gets an account up and running, and just kind of play around with it. As you know from our episode today, we've been putting stuff up on the screen as Maggie's been kind of explaining things, so it should be pretty easy for you to figure out this website. I just have one quick question that I ask all people that come on our show, and that is, what is something about the tiny house movement that you believe but nobody will agree with you?
Ooh, good question. Well, I'm sure that I like to think that there's somebody out there that might agree with me, at least to some extent. But to me, I would say that the tiny house movement, to me, actually has nothing to do with the size of your home. To me, the tiny house movement is about living simply, living with a low carbon footprint, and focusing on things that are most important in life and experiences and people. And so whether you live in a sprawling, enormous home on a foundation, or you live in a 160-foot tiny house on wheels, I would say that you can focus on those values in your life and implement them, and still subscribe to the tiny house movement.
That's awesome. Well, once again, Maggie, I thank you so much for coming on today, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and good luck with the website. I'm really looking forward to see how it grows into something really awesome.
Great. Thanks for having me.
Not a problem.